Hello and welcome to episode 371 of Scarves Around the Funnel, the podcast dedicated to table-topping Heart of Midlothian. 8 points clear of Celtic. Busy week for us here on the podcast. 3 of the 4 days we shall be recording during the midweek, plus the game at St Mirren on Wednesday, and then it's Dundee on Saturday. What better way to start the week than by welcoming in Mr. Hearts, a Hearts legend who's played more times for the football club than anybody else. How excited are you right now, Gary Mackay?
Hugely so, Mark. It's been a wonderful start to the season. Everything's just aligned itself, really. I mean, the fact that Derek's came in, we have got a manager of men now, and the fact that Tony Bloom's investment has allowed us to have a start to the season I don't think any of us could have thought about it when the season kicked off.
Does it take you back to 85, 86 and that run with all that momentum?
It does in a way, but I think the fact that we didn't start well and then we kicked in later on in the season, this is new for all of us. You know, I mean, I know 2005, 2006 were a great start, but there's a stability about the football club right now that hasn't been there for many a year.
Given everything that you've done for the football club, played for the football club more than anybody else, your involvement in the early stages of Save Our Hearts, now at the foundation, big football fan, big Hearts fan yourself, how difficult is it to stop yourself from getting too excited? Or do you just think, sod it, why not?
I think you have to live for the moment. I think as Hearts supporters, we've not had lots of times over my lifetime of 61 years, there's not been a lot of real positivity yet. We have had Scottish Cup wins and we've had great European adventures. But to be sitting at the top of the league, looking quite comfortable at the top of the league, and probably the only other club that are playing above where they would expect are our local rivals. So for the two Edinburgh clubs to actually be kind of punching above their weight at the start of the season is wonderful for everybody.
Hearts beating Celtic 3-1 at the end of October. It was the start of October in 1985 when Hearts began their unbeaten run, a 1-1 draw against Dundee. What is it about momentum in any sport, and how many games or matches, when you're involved, do you need to kind of have behind you, as far as momentum is concerned, to think to yourself, hey, we've got something here?
I think there's loads of aspects that come into it. I mean, people will say, "Oh, we dropped points against Motherwell," but the one great thing against Motherwell is that we never gave up. We showed a determination, a resilience against a really, really good Motherwell side, and that lifts you because you know that it's in your locker to come back in a game when you go behind. Same against their local rivals. They were unfortunate to have a shot come off the post late in the game, but we didn't just settle to say, "Oh, we just want a point here." We went and got 3 points. And then last week, and I was talking to guys yesterday, I didn't get to the Kilmarnock game. The guys were saying that not only the performance being really positive, but the backing from the 4,000 Hearts supporters. They said they had never really witnessed anything like that at a provincial Scottish stadium. At Celtic and Rangers and Easter Road, it happens all the time. But they said that the supporters were lifting the roof off the place at Kilmarnock. And that can only augur well for the weeks and months ahead.
I mean, we're recording this on Monday, and it was on Talk Sport this morning with Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoy. It's been on Sky Sports all weekend. Hold on a minute here. Hearts are top. They're 8 points clear of Celtic. This isn't something that happens very often. The fact that a non-Old Firm team is 8 points clear, it's only happened once this century, and that was only for a day because Celtic won the following year. They won the following day. So do you think this group of players and the setup at Tynecastle right now with the manager and how he's just saying, okay, fine, great, we're top of the table, but we're only 9 games in. Do you think this is set up so that whatever happens coming forward now, and there's going to be a lot more interest in Heart of Midlothian Football Club from outside of Edinburgh, from outside of Scotland, do you think they're coped, or they're able to cope with what's going to happen if they keep this lead up?
I think the players and manager are. I think the squad that we have, because there's a freshness to it, there's no fear in the squad. I mean, Braga and Kizaridis, I mean, two guys, 24, 25-year-old, great age to be coming to a club of Hearts standing. And they play with no fear. They play with a smile on their face. Every time they get the ball, they have only one thought, and that's going forward. And they're allowed that because they know that they also have a core behind them. Benny and Cammy Devlin were excellent yesterday. For me, the player that's epitomised how we've progressed this season is Craig Halkett. I don't know if Derek spoke to him in the pre-season and says to him what he had to do to make sure he was one of the number one centre half. But whatever it is and whatever conversations have been had, Craig Halkett epitomises for me what is all good about Hearts.
I'll let you into a wee secret, a story, a conversation I had via WhatsApp last night. So a guy who I used to work with at ESPN, Tato Noriega, is now the CEO of Monterrey in Mexico, okay. Liga MX. And they're probably the richest club in Mexico. And I haven't spoken for about 3-4 months. And I got a message last night when I was actually on the phone with Luke Shanley of Sky Sports when we were talking over his post-game interviews with Derek and Brendan. And the text goes in WhatsApp, and it's a picture of a league table. And he's like, "Are you believing yet?" And this is from Tato. We always joke, because I always spoke about how I was a Hearts fan and whatever. So I went back and forward with him. I said, it's amazing and whatever. And then I thought, you know what? He's the CEO of Monterrey. They've got loads of money. I said, look, you should keep tabs on Kizaridis and you should keep tags on Claudio Braga. I said, I'll do you a deal right now, 10 million for the both of them. And we had a chuckle. But he says, look, they're doing something right, so I'll be making sure that I keep tabs on them and whatever. That's just one story of potential interest, and that's not going to come to anything. But there's going to be, with all the things that I've spoken about, Talk Sport, Sky Sports, the French magazine Onze Mondial, in Australia and New Zealand, they're talking about Hearts. There's going to be interest in these players, and Tony Bloom, given what he's done at Brighton, is going to ensure that there's plenty of interest in these players. If it keeps going the way things are going, whether it's Monterrey bidding 10 million for them both, or if bids come in January, how difficult will it be now for Hearts to keep hold of the players that are right now making the headlines?
I don't think January would be something that Hearts would think about moving players on. I think that come the end of this season, I'm not sure a lot of the players would want to move on either, even if they are playing at the top of their level, because when they're embracing what's going on in the football club, and I mean the atmosphere yesterday, and the opportunity looks like it could be afforded to them in a season that is completely different. Rangers have, started really poorly. Celtic have had issues within their football club, both on and off the pitch. 1960, Mark, was the last time Heart and Midlothian won the top division in Scotland. Yeah. And for these players, we talk about that word legend, and it's a hugely overused word in football vocabulary, I think. But these lads have the opportunity to become, and I mean real legends, because if they were to win the Premier League after, 65, 66 years. Yep. I mean, I'm not sure how any of us could describe how we would think we would feel at that moment in time, but imagine how these individual players would feel and how they would feel as a collective, because really it's coming from the collective. You can see that. I mean, Derek he's got a massive squad. I've got the programme sitting here and I'm looking at the number of players. We have a huge squad, but they all seem so invested in what's in front of them. And the next thing for them to be invested in is Paisley on a cold, probably miserable Wednesday evening. And how do we deal with that?
It's probably a more important game now than the Celtic game. The Celtic game takes care of itself. As long as you're up for it, which Hearts were, I thought the opening 10 minutes was absolutely outstanding. It's just what you want to be. And yeah, after they equalised, there was a bit of a drop-off. I thought we ended the first half well, and then second half it was back to where we were in the first kind of 10 minutes of the first half and the last 10 minutes as well. I spoke about chatting with Luke, and I mentioned to him last night about the interview that he did with Lawrence Shankland and Claudio Braga. And you could see from the outtakes, they're sitting on each other's knee, they're having a laugh and a joke. Lawrence is saying, "Oh, that'll be another fine if you post another photo of yourself on social media or sing along." That is a camaraderie which, as Lawrence said, it wasn't like that at the start. He came in and they got to know each other's game and whatever. But when you've got that behind the scenes and when you look forward to going to training today, do you see similarities between what Derek has got with his players right now and what you and the rest of your teammates had in 85, 86 with Alex and Sandy?
Well, I mean, I think when I look back to the last Rangers game, the last season, Mark, we had a table at Tynecastle provided by the hospitality group. Alec McDonald was there, Neil Berry, Scott Crabbe was there, Kenny Black was there, Walter Kidd was there, and there's still these connections, and we were so close, but there was a togetherness, and that togetherness manifests itself on the training ground and in the changing rooms. And Alec McDonald and Sandy Jardine, is that a coincidence that Derek McInnes played a major part of his footballing career at Glasgow Rangers in relation to where Alec McDonald and Sandy Jardine done the exact same? And they both as individuals, Sandy and Alec as individuals and as a collective, and Derek as an individual with his staff, they all got what Heart of Midlothian was about. Mm-hmm. And that was, the supporters are looking for one thing in particular, and that is for the players to leave everything on the pitch. And that is all they last for. And if that allows us to win football matches, the next game, the atmosphere will build again, and it'll build again. And I think we're very, very fortunate with the asset we have as a manager just now, as fortunate as I was under Alec McDonald and Sandy Jardine.
This week's different. This week is similar to the League Cup in that you don't have 7 days in between. Mm-hmm. Midweek, weekend, midweek. That's the way it is right now. There's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday games. So it's going to be slightly different. If you're Derek McInnes, and he said this in his interview with Luke pre-game ahead of Celtic, because he was asked about an unchanged lineup again. And he said, look, there will be changes because we've got a week that we haven't had for a while. We've got a midweek game. Given that St Mirren play on Saturday, and there's some suggestion, despite the fact that Gogic is already suspended after being sent off at Tannadice, that they may rest a few players, with Saturday being far more important to them, a chance to reach a cup final. If you're Derek McInnes and you're going to make changes, do you make them against St Mirren, which he's done before this season in the League Cup and it didn't go well, or do you name as close a team as you did for Celtic in the previous games against St Mirren and then make the changes against Dundee this weekend? What are you doing?
I think if our squad are fit for selection and you're winning football matches, I think you keep it the same. And I think the changes maybe come during the course of the match. My wee worry is that, particularly for people like Craig Halkett, and who's a bit older and does put his body in line all the time, you need to judge if he is able. And there's sports science guys and so on, as well as physios and that now, that they have to make a judgment to guide Derek. I don't think any footballer, given the opportunity to play on Wednesday evening, would say no. And I think that means for me that the same team will be picked unless somebody has a niggle that they worry about long term.
Who's the Gary Mackay in this current Hearts squad?
I'm not sure. I think this squad is so together. I think that I wasn't a leader. I mean, if I'm looking at somebody like a Watty Kidd or a Neil Berry, the the two, actually, if I'm thinking of Waterkid and Newberry, who were the protective elements of the guys that were they maybe more skilled players, Craig Halkett and Cammy Devlin are the two that are showing that kind of leadership. I've not always been a great fan of Cammy Devlin's. At times, I've thought his use of the ball's been left a bit to be desired, but I thought at the tail end of Liam Fox's time, he was progressing on the ball, and I think some of his performances this season have been brilliant. And I keep going back to Craig Halkett. He is a leader of men on the pitch. And there was two instances yesterday. Lawrence Shanklin ended up running back to stop a Celtic attack about 25 yards from the Hearts goal. And there was a shot not long after it that Craig Halkett dived in the penalty box to block. And that is players putting themselves on the line for the collective.
When you and I wrote that book, your book, which is behind me to the side for those of you watching on YouTube, it had everything about Hearts, minus a trophy, minus a medal. And look, if you were offered that when you were a wee laddie at Ball Green, you would have signed up for it. I mean, you're playing for your boyhood heroes. You're playing more times than anybody else, and I think that's a record that will stand forever. And you'll always be Mr. Hearts, you and Gary Locke. And I like the fact you spoke about the word legend can be bandied around a bit too easily. But those that won the Cup in '98, after a 42-year wait to win the Scottish Cup, a Hearts League title challenge right now, because that's what it is. It's a title challenge. For now, we hope to potentially win it. Do you sense, as a fan yourself, there's a slight change in the attitudes of probably the majority of the Hearts fans from it's Hearts, they're going to let us down sometime, to now, hey, the evidence is there. There's something brewing. There's excitement. Have you noticed a change with your pals and you to the way that you now look at this title race?
Well, there's no doubt that the analytics is something that, I mean, I'm ignorant to that. You know, my knowledge of the computer is about switching it on and switching it off again. But
you've even got a blurred background. This is impressive.
But that was led by my missus for sure. If she could blur my face out, she would probably want that done as well. But even the reception, and I think the reception that we'll give Tony Bloom is magnificent. But I think what Tony Bloom has done, he's brought something to the football club that we would never have envisaged a year ago. And I read an article there over the weekend about James Anderson and Anne Budge meeting him down in London and how excited they were.
Ewan Murray wrote that. It was excellent in The Guardian.
It was a magnificent article. And I think to myself, you know, he was talking about in the next 10 years, something could change. So right now, you've got the two clubs in Scotland with the biggest fan bases struggling to maintain the levels that are expected of them. And you've got the third biggest club in Scotland, without a shadow of a doubt, punching well above their weight with a quality in the squad and with players. When you look at the guys that came on yesterday, who was the one that Magnuson? When you look and think, when you could swap like for like and bring somebody like Magnuson on in the midfield, and he's got a physical presence, and the team doesn't dip, it kind of it stays at the same level and maybe even kicks on a wee bit. You're nurturing something special.
Here's one for you. Before Tony Bloom spoke with Hearts, Hibs had the opportunity to have him on board. But for one or two different reasons, which might in the future come out, they elected not to go with Tony Bloom, and they ended up with the Black Knights. Do you see similarities here between many years ago, Hibernian having an opportunity to sign a young lad by the name of John Robertson and not taking that opportunity, and look what he went to do against them, to now with Tony Bloom, with Hibs having had the opportunity before Hearts to get Tony Bloom on board and involved and invested in their club. Didn't happen, and it's now Hearts. I think there might just be a little thing from Tony Bloom. It's not just about how excited he is, what's going on in the field right now with Hearts, but maybe a little bit of a two fingers to Hibs. Do you see similarities with Robbo and Tony Bloom in the way things have kind of gone about?
I think my maturity now is that I don't. I look at that. I look at Hibs right now, and I think they're doing well. And I like David Gray. I like the way he conducts his selling and what he brings up, what he's brought to their football club, and the fact that he got them into Europe last year after a really difficult start to his managerial career. All I want, I'm quite happy at Hibs being third, and if that's what happened, which I want, you're guiding me about something there. That's been our gain and their loss. And there is a similarity. You're right in the playing side, because not getting Robbo was a huge miss for anybody, not just Hibs, because there were so many clubs wanting him. But for me, it's a positive of what Tony Bloom's brought to us. Not just on the pitch. I mean, even watching him yesterday, I mean, you're talking about my friends, and three of my friends were pictured celebrating at the end of the game yesterday, who have followed Hearts for 50, 55 years.
From Perth to Paisley.
Tony Bloom's been in the Baldwin, 5-6 months, and the way he was celebrating yesterday was wonderful. But I also think, Mark, it was also wonderful to see how Anne Budge was celebrating.
Yes,
because I think at times, because there has been, and Anne had a particular way she was working and the projects that she wanted to have in the managerial side, and they've not worked. But she's still there. She's been a constant. And the Save Our Hearts that you talk about in the foundation, if it hadn't been for Anne Budge, we would never have had the opportunity to get somebody like Tony Bloom into our football club. And we can't forget that.
Do you have a relationship with James Anderson? You spoke about you and Murray's article at the weekend. I've never met him, don't know him. Is he someone that you've been in his company? And if so, what's he brought to the football club?
I've never had any contact with James Anderson. I don't know him personally. But for somebody who wants to be in the background, but has got the capabilities financially and from a business perspective to support what Tony Bloom's doing, we're very, very fortunate as a club. And got us into a position where she saved the football club, and we now have two investors who want to take the club on. And January will be interesting. January will be really interesting. The fact that we've got the Kazakhstani lad. How does his name pronounce? How's his name pronounced?
Islam Chesnikov.
That's him. Yep. That's my one difficulty I have with the Hearts players now, is try to get the pronunciations of their names right with these folks.
There's no Gary Mackay and Kenny Blackson.
No,
too many that they're signing.
So he's already coming in. So that excites you when you see the wide players that we have. And if we are in a position where we're guaranteed not to be relegated this season in 3 or 4 games' time, and you're building towards...
You've already spoken about that.
And you're building towards what's in front of you. January becomes really big for everybody. And when you look at the two guys that are in the front area, I mean, he was a free transfer, Casaditas. You know, I mean, it's astonishing for me. And you look at these guys, but you also look at Harry Milne. No disrespect to Harry Milne. I didn't know who Harry Milne was from Adam. And James Penrice, I thought, what a mess he could be. But the way that Derek's moved things about on the pitch and moved players about is to be admired also. And you just... I think as a player, because I know as a supporter, you want the games to keep coming thick and fast, because you want to continue with the momentum that we have built in the early part of the season.
We've been playing a game, Scott McIntosh and I, on the podcast the last couple of weeks. We've managed to take the banker from Deal or No Deal on loan. And the first offer to Scott was prior to the game at Kilmarnock. And I offered Scott 5 points from Killie away, Celtic at home, and St Mirren away. And he said no, as did 74% of the audience. Now, last week, I offered Scott 4 points from, or the banker offered Scott 4 points from Celtic at home and St Mirren away. He said no. I offered him 4 with the caveat that the win would be against Celtic. And he said no. So here's the final deal from the Deal or No Deal banker for Scarves Around the Funnel to Gary Mackay. Right now, I know we're involved in a title race and would love to win the title for the first time since 1960. I'm going to offer you second place for Hearts with a caveat. It comes with a Scottish Cup win. You can take that deal right now and run, or you can play it out in the hope that we do indeed go on to win the league, which would usurp everything. Would you take right now, end of October, second place in the league and a Scottish Cup win?
From what I've seen in the group that we have wearing the Marooney Hearts right now, no.
Wow.
I think that group, I think the group as it is right now is capable of sustaining a challenge. And if we have other irons in the fire for January, that can only, for me, solidify my feelings. And there will be times where we have a wee dip, and it's how we respond when we have that dip. But I look at the squad that we have and probably judge it with who's no stripped.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at yesterday, young James Wilson's no stripped. Khartoum, I thought, looked a decent wee football player when he came here. Hasn't he been stripped? Neuenhoff isn't he about the place yesterday? And there's more than that. So for me, as a supporter, no. And if I was part of that group, I would be saying no as well.
I love that. I love that. Given that in the summer, I mean, no one's even spoken about second spot. And a Scottish Cup win would be a good season, a really good season for Hearts.
Absolutely.
It would be a trophy. What does that tell us about how far we've come in 3 months, given the results that we've had, and now the expectation level and the belief factor that comes with that?
I think we've been very fortunate that, and as I said earlier, really at the start of this, that the alignment of the analytics, of the players coming in, and Derek McInnes's knowledge of the players that were needed in the Hearts side, and Derek's vast experience of clubs both in England and in Scotland. None probably as big as Hearts, and Derek knew what he was coming into. And when you get that opportunity, when you've had as much experience as Derek has had, and you get these things put in front of you, to add to the tools that he already had in his locker,
mm-hmm.
I think everybody at this moment in time has been very fortunate that it's all just fell into place. And all we can hope for is that if Ali McCoist, who is in a completely different position to me, who has won Premiership trophies,
won a lot,
saying today that he thinks our club will win the Scottish Premiership, I'll let Ali decide that.
You're only allowed to give me one player here. Which one player, above all else, gets Gary Mackay off his seat through excitement when you're at Tynecastle?
I think the one player that I love everything about him is Lawrence Shankland. Because Lawrence Shankland took a bit of verbals for the Hearts supporters for a period when his future wasn't certain at the club. And he's just got on with it. He's kept his head down. He's a magnificent football player. He's a magnificent finisher. And he has now got, it's not just about Lawrence. I think it suits Lawrence so much that he has foils in the team, allowing him to be the quality football player that he is, without the pressure and onus on his shoulders to be the goal scorer. So I think Craig Halkett's been massive for us, but Shankland is the one for me that makes the difference, Mark.
I love that answer simply because I was trying to lead the witness and make it between Kizaridis and Braga. So I love the fact that you've said Shankland. As far as Kizaridis is concerned, he plays in the same position, but is he a right-footed John Cahoon? Do you see similarities there?
I think the great thing about Kizaridis, and we spoke about this last night, and a lot of wingers in the past have always been all one-footed, or good players that I played with, like Tosh McKinley, who would totally sail around to get onto his left foot and so on. Kizaridis is able to go on either side, and for a defender, that must be an absolute nightmare. And it paid off for us yesterday again. It's paid off previously. And they are two outstanding football players, but they're only in the infancy of their careers at the football club. And it's about them continuing to bring the enjoyment and pleasure to the supporters, and also to enhance their opportunities for their careers going forward. Because if they do continue to play as they're playing, particularly Kizaridis, he'll not be at Hearts come this summer or the following summer. But that was, and what we have to as supporters be understanding of, is that is how Tony Bloom works. That is the concept. Bring a player in, make the team better, make the player better, financially enable the club to reinvest the money, and hopefully win trophies along the way.
Have you found yourself singing along to any part of the Claudio Braga song?
I sing the Claudio Braga song, but the one that gets me, and that comes from the 70s, is "We'll Support You Evermore." And I think because of the foundation in our football club, when we sing "We'll Support You Evermore," there's a realness to it. Some other supporters groups will maybe sing it and so on, but the realness for Heart and Midlothian is the people that are invested in the foundation, the people like Gary Halliday, who have given up so much of their lives to get us to where we are now, and for nothing. And that is about supporting your club forevermore. And listening to that yesterday, reverberating round Tynecastle, Mark, was absolutely wonderful.
2005, 2006, you and I sat down and we wrote Believe, the story of that season and why Burley left. What is clear from rereading it, from listening to Czar of Hearts on the BBC, from watching games back, and it was just 20 years ago. It was already 20 years ago last week when George Fawkes made that statement to try and defend why Vladimir Romanov had sacked George Burley. It was an incredible season. But that was a season, unlike 85-86, where you didn't start well and got better. That was a season Hearts started very well. Do you see similarities between 05-06 and how momentum was building then and this season, given that Hearts fans were at Killie half an hour before the game? There was loads of them already in the stadium. That was very similar to Tannadice in 05-06 at the start of the season. What's the biggest similarities you see?
I think the flair in the team. I think we always felt, and we had a lot of the games at the start of that season, we just blew teams away. We've not done that as much this season, but what we've always done is we've made sure we were in the football match this season, and we've always got a positive outcome. And we're talking about the games that we've won. Maybe the Motherwell game was the real one where the players started to believe something special could happen. When you have been, and we were that day, we were outplayed with a wonderful football team, but we never ever gave up in the match. And we had that character and resilience to come back and get something from the game and could remain undefeated in the league. And that substance, and I know I keep going back to it, and I know I keep going back to the individual, because our people are as keyboard warriors, and Derek's this and he's set in his ways. And Derek McInnes, yes, Tony Bloom's made a massive difference. Yes, Anne Bud's, but right now, since George Burley's time, Derek McInnes is far and away the best appointment that we have made.
And we got there in the end. There's no point looking back now and saying, oh, we should have appointed him whenever. It's done. It's done. You can't change the past, but you can influence the future. And I love Derek McInnes' comments afterwards. He's the kind of feet on the ground for everyone else, but let the fans believe. Let the fans dream. But from his perspective, and I don't know if it's different inside a dressing room with a message being sent. He'll not be saying to these players, I'm not sure if we can win the title. He'll be saying, why not? But then he's got to keep kind of balanced when he meets the press. He has come out of this, I think, very well so far, but he's also said a couple of rounds of fixtures. Once we've played everybody twice, then we'll be in a better position to judge. Is that a fair time frame for us while we're enjoying this wonderful ride that we're on right now?
No, I think we have to continue to enjoy the ride, no matter what the outcome is. We have to continue to back the players to the hilt because they're giving it their best shot. We have to continue in the ride we're going on, or we're on. But we also have to understand it. And people say, oh, but this game, that. All we can affect, and I think Derek said it in different ways at times, all we can affect is the games that we play in. We can't affect anybody else. It's about what Hearts do in the 90 minutes on Wednesday night, the 90 minutes on Saturday against Dundee. That's all we can affect right now. And I think you're right. There is a realism, but there's an authenticity to Derek McInnes as a football manager and as a person. And I think within a changing room, players respond to that. And if we go back to Alec MacDonald and Sandy Jardine, that's what they had. They had an authenticity about them that you knew the way they were managing you was with utmost respect, but what they expected was you to go out and show the respect they had in you on the playing field. And I think Derek is exactly the same with the squad of players he has now.
Going back to 85, 86, I'm looking at a game at Celtic, 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
You played in that game. Mo Johnson opened the scoring after half an hour. Robbo equalised just before half-time. Now, you went into the game with a 4-point lead over Aberdeen and Dundee United and a 5-point lead over Celtic. Dundee United had played 3 games less, so they were obviously a title contender. And you finished that game 3 points clear of Aberdeen and 4 clear of Dundee United and 5 clear of Celtic. Rangers were in 5th back then. At which stage during that season, bearing in mind by that Celtic game you were top, at which stage did you think you were in a title race and felt, hey, we got to believe we belong here?
Was there a game on a Sunday that we played Aberdeen? I think, I can't remember why it was a Sunday. Was it something to do with something on at Murrayfield?
It wasn't the Cahoon. No, that was a Saturday game that Hearts won at Pittodrie by 1-0.
Was it? Was there not a home game?
There was a Wednesday home game in October when Hearts won 1-0, Levine in the 15th minute.
No, that's not in my memory. I wish Rob was sitting next to me right now because he would keep me right. I mean, the game it comes to mind as far as knowing we had a real chance was going to Tannadice.
You're talking about the Aberdeen game, the Sunday game in April.
Yeah.
That Cahoon equalises late on to get a point. That was the first ever live STV Scottish Premier League game.
That's the one I was thinking of, and that again was because that character in the team, he keep going to the very last. It was the same in the training ground. You gave it your best shot because you knew if you were in the best physical condition on the training ground, that would transmit itself onto the playing field. And John Cahoon scoring late on was a part of the kind of character that we had in our squad at that point.
But you're still top of the table. I've spoken about the Celtic game back in February, and you were top of the table. Surely there's belief before that. When you go to the top of the table, are you just thinking, "Oh, we'll get caught"? Because you're on this run.
Yeah.
So when was it at first you thought we could do this, we could win this? Because surely you're thinking about that before the Aberdeen game in April.
But honestly, and this is without word of a lie, we never discussed it. We genuinely never discussed it. And as I say, it's the same. It's the same. Well, it's the same situation a lot earlier in the season. I think for Derek is that it is, and it's a huge adage in football. It is one game at a time, and that's all you can affect. You can only affect the next game. How we play on Wednesday night, or who comes through Wednesday night, will have an impact on Saturday. But Saturday doesn't exist right now. And it'll not exist in the players' eyes, and it'll not exist in Derek's eyes, because the 90 minutes that is the most crucial 90 minutes of this season is Wednesday evening.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And it'll be a really, I mean, a horrible place to go to when the sun's shining. It is. And they're a big, big physical side. And how do you deal with that physicality? You know, Wednesday becomes, you know, and I came home last night and I was physically and mentally drained on the back of being at Tynecastle yesterday, because you feel like you're kicking the ball with every other player that was on the pitch yesterday. And how these players must be feeling coming off that result. There would have been a euphoria within. And hopefully they can transmit that euphoria that they felt at the end of Sunday's game into Wednesday night's game.
A mutual friend of ours, a very good friend of yours, someone you're having dinner with tomorrow, Bert Logan, wonderful guy. Bert used to be the sprint coach at Hearts. Now he's a bookie as well. I don't know if his knowledge of bookmaking has ever rubbed off on you, but right now Celtic are favourites, even though they're 8 points behind, because there's still, as Brendan Rodgers tells us, 29 games left. Thank you, Brendan. They're 4-6. Hearts are 6-4. Who's the value there?
Oh, Hearts are the value at this moment in time in the Premier League. If you'd have been looking, if that had been the prices that the bookmakers were giving you at the start of the season, Celtic would have been the value, because none of us seen. Well, a lot of us knew Derek's background. A lot of us knew the core group of players that we had, but none of us envisaged as positive a start as we've had. But it's there.
Yep.
And that's happening. And we have to live with that reality. And as Hearts supporters, sometimes that reality is different to live with. It's difficult to live with, because it's in your face that there could be an opportunity for these players. And if there's an opportunity for the players, there's an opportunity for us to deal with a 60-odd year failing.
Can you understand the majority of Celtic fans, even now, despite the fact they're 8 points clear and their manager and their board don't get along and the players that they're signing haven't been great, there's still a majority of thinking, yeah, there's been other teams that have done this. Just have to go back to last season, Aberdeen, and look how much they fell off. Do you think there's any chance that Hearts, given all the publicity that they've had and probably will continue to have, could still be underestimated and just kind of, no, that'll never happen, because it's not happened for 60 years from a Hearts perspective, or since 1985 when Fergie won it for Aberdeen? Do you understand the majority of Celtic fans who've probably seen this before and think, flash in the pan?
Aye, absolutely. And the longer they think like that, the better.
was going to say that helps Hearts, right?
For sure. Well, for me, it does. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because they think, in a way, it's a divine right as part of the old firm that they will have the stubbornness, the desire, the quality going forward to get results on the football pitch. But sometimes when your club is in disarray, both on and off the pitch, where the supporters turn not wanting to attend European games, that also has an impact. Particularly when you've got a squad that, apart from Callum McGregor, has a lot of young players who have never experienced the expectation of playing in a Celtic first team.
There's a photo in your book when you were involved with Save Our Hearts. And given everything that happened subsequent to that, the administration and everything like that, in the darkest of days, in the lowest of the low, whenever that was for you as a Hearts supporter, after you'd been a player, did you dare to dream that days like now were possible?
No, but when you have a love that I, along with thousands of others, have for Heart of Midlothian as a football club and what they bring to the community and what they mean to so many of us, you live in hope. And right now, our hopes are higher than they've been for a long, long time.
When you were standing in that pub in Copenhagen last December and belting out the Hearts song, you were like the ringleader. And this is like, how many players that have played so many games for a team are also fans of the football club, and the club means so much to them. I've asked you about the darkest of days and the lowest of the lows. Let's just go back 10 months to Copenhagen. It wasn't great. There was chance of sack the board. We'd gone through managers. We hadn't found the one we wanted. Behind the scenes just seemed a mess for those of us on the outside looking in. What's been the most important thing that has happened since you stood in that bar, that Irish bar in Copenhagen, until now that's happened to Heart of Midlothian Football Club that means we are now in this position compared to where we were in Denmark?
It's really difficult because there are two things that have happened. Tony Bloom came from nowhere, and then probably in a way, Derek McInnes came from nowhere. Because at 10 months ago, I wouldn't have thought either the two of these individuals would have thought they would be at Heart of Midlothian Football Club. And not just coming to Heart of Midlothian Football Club, but have Heart of Midlothian Football Club in a really healthy position. And there are still things, Mark, and we can't hide from it because we've been through so much. There are still things off the field that can be improved.
Such as?
I don't think our accounts will be very great this year.
Nope.
And I think, it's wonderful that we have the investment that Tony Bloom and James Anderson have put in, but we also have to be careful in the way we manage our money in the football club for darker times. Because there's one thing sure at Heart of Midlothian, the positivity hopefully will continue and continue and continue. But sometimes when it levels off, we have to be aware that the football club is the most important, or the playing side is the most important part of the club.
So 10 months ago when you were in that pub in Denmark, a lot has changed since then. Let's fast forward 10 months, the start of next season. Where'll Hearts be? What will have happened in these next 10 months?
What do I think will happen or what do I want to happen?
We all know what we want to happen. What do you think will happen?
I think the squaddy players and the manager that we have will get every ounce out of each other. And if that's good enough, that'll do for me.
Coming up for the rest of the week on Scarves Around the Funnel, Ryan McGowan, Scott McIntosh. On Tuesday, to look back at a more in-depth way of Hearts against Celtic from the weekend, and to look ahead to the midweek action in Paisley, where, according to Gary Mackay, it's not even a nice place when the sun shines. And then on Thursday, Scott and I will review the action in Paisley and preview the game this weekend against Dundee at Tynecastle. Mr. Mackay, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll do all this again soon.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.